When you picture the worst place to be during a zombie apocalypse, your imagination probably drifts toward crowded shopping malls, airports, or maybe a packed stadium where chaos multiplies faster than the undead. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, and sometimes it decides to trap you in a maximum security prison. Suddenly, you're standing in the middle of endless concrete, with fences humming in the wind, gates slamming shut, and the comforting knowledge that this building was designed to keep dangerous things inside, not to protect anyone from what's clawing at the walls outside. The power flickers, the intercom is dead, and the only thing echoing through the corridors is the sound of moaning from corpses that never learned the courtesy of staying down. The good news, if such a thing exists here, is that these aren't the fast zombies. They're not Olympic sprinters charging at you with the fury of caffeinated cheetahs. These are the slow, clumsy, stumbling variety whose biggest threat is persistence. They drag their feet, bump into walls, and slap at fences like angry toddlers in an eternal tantrum. You can outwalk them without breaking a sweat, but what they lack in speed, they more than make up for in sheer commitment. They will never give up, never pause, never stop trying to squeeze through the smallest crack or find the weakest link in your defenses. In other words, they're the most annoying neighbors you've ever had, and they don't even have the decency to turn their music down. But prisons, by design, are fortresses. The same architecture that once kept high-risk offenders from escaping now works in your favor. Towering concrete walls form a barrier zombies can't simply tumble over. Heavy steel doors lock with a sound that rattles through the corridors, sealing off sections like the chambers of a bunker. Narrow hallways, stairwells, and barred gates create natural choke points that can be turned into kill zones. And if you're lucky enough to reach the rooftops or towers, you suddenly have sight lines and firing positions most survivors would kill for. It's as if someone designed the building with a zombie apocalypse in mind. Only the original blueprints said keep inmates contained instead of protect panicked humans from the undead. Then there's the treasure hunt. Maintenance closets scattered across the facility hold a surprising wealth of improvised weaponry. Hammers, wrenches, pipe cutters, even the occasional power tool. All tools meant for repair, now pressed into service as skull-crushing implements of survival. None of it is glamorous, but practicality matters more than style. And then there's the armory. If it hasn't been emptied by guards or desperate survivors during the first days of panic, you might stumble into a jackpot of firearms, ammunition, and riot control equipment. That's assuming you can actually get inside, because the universe has a habit of locking the good stuff behind reinforced doors. Even if the guns are gone, riot gear remains. Helmets, padded vests, face shields, and batons, once used to keep prisoners under control, now serve as bite-resistant armor that turns you into a slightly ridiculous but much safer gladiator. Of course, not everything requires brute force. Prisons often run vocational programs for inmates: welding, plumbing, carpentry, electrical work. Under normal circumstances, these were rehabilitation efforts, meant to help someone find honest work on the outside. Now, they're your survival toolkit. If the apocalypse has taught us anything, it's that society still needs welders more than it needs influencers. The man who once welded scrap metal for extra credit is suddenly the one person who can fortify your barricades or patch up a broken generator. And if you don't trust him because he once robbed a gas station, too bad. He's the only reason your lights are still on. Speaking of lights, power is a fickle ally. Most prisons have backup generators, usually diesel, designed to keep critical systems running during outages. They hum reassuringly, keeping pumps moving water, security doors functional, and lights glowing in the corridors. But their lifespan is short. 48 to 72 hours of fuel, if you're lucky, after which the building plunges into darkness unless you find more. If the facility happens to have solar panels, you've struck gold, but don't count on it. The ticking clock on fuel is a constant reminder that every advantage here is temporary, and the glow of electric light is not a gift you can take for granted. Water, at least in the beginning, is manageable. Most maximum security facilities run on city supply and often have storage tanks or towers as backup. Faucets will still run for a time, giving you a chance to fill every container you can find. But eventually the grid falters, pipes run dry, and you're forced to improvise. Rainwater collection becomes essential, though it comes with its own hazards. Water falling from the sky may look pure, but it drags bacteria, heavy metals, and pollutants with it. Drink it unfiltered, and you might spend the apocalypse battling diarrhea worse than any zombie bite. Boiling helps, but it doesn't fix everything. Without proper filtration, every sip is a gamble. Nothing kills morale like a group of survivors arguing over who used the last piece of charcoal to boil water while everyone else is doubled over in pain. Food supplies are more generous, at least at first. A prison designed for thousands of inmates has warehouses of dry goods: rice, beans, oats, powdered mixes, canned goods. Refrigerated and frozen supplies spoil quickly once the power dies, but the shelf-stable stockpile can stretch for months, depending on how many mouths you're feeding. The math is simple but brutal. A small group can ration supplies into years, while a large group burns through everything in a fraction of that time. It's one of the few times in life when being antisocial pays dividends. And then there's the commissary. Shelves of instant ramen, coffee, candy, and cigarettes don't just keep people alive, they keep them sane. In a collapsed world, chocolate and nicotine aren't luxuries, they're currency. A Snickers bar can secure loyalty, a pack of cigarettes can settle arguments, and coffee can transform a grumpy mechanic into someone willing to fix your generator instead of smashing it. In a twisted way, sugar and caffeine become more valuable than gold. Some prisons offer another unexpected gift: gardens. Inmate-run agricultural programs, once designed as rehabilitation, now bloom into survival tools. Rows of vegetables and herbs, enclosed within the safety of fences, suddenly become renewable food sources. It won't feed a small army, but it can sustain a group willing to work the soil. There's something almost poetic about apocalypse survivors tending lettuce under barbed wire, trading hose for shotguns when the alarm sounds. For once, spinach becomes more valuable than any weapon. And if food and water don't convince you the prison has promise, remember the infirmary. A small medical unit stocked with antiseptics, antibiotics, painkillers, gauze, maybe even syringes. It's not a hospital, but in a world where a scratch can turn septic, it's a lifeline. In the apocalypse, medicine is more valuable than ammunition. Bandages save more lives than bullets ever will. And having access to antibiotics is the difference between surviving a cut and becoming another body clawing at the gates. For all its advantages, though, the prison is not a utopia. It's a trap waiting to spring, and the dangers come faster than you'd like to believe. The first problem is the undead already inside. The outbreak didn't politely wait until everyone was in neat little groups outside the fence. It spread in the cafeteria, in the yard, in the cells. One infected inmate, one panic guard, one slip off a catwalk, and suddenly you have walkers wandering your hallways. Clearing them out is mandatory but terrifying. Corridors echo with moans, stairwells jam with bodies, and cells rattle with unseen threats. Every door you open could reveal a survivor or a nightmare. Even if you clear the inside, the yard may be filled with dozens who turn during recreation, pacing behind fences, waiting for the chance to pour in. The second problem is human nature. Guards stick with guards, inmates stick with gangs, and old rivalries ignite under stress. For the first few days, people cling to familiar loyalties, but hunger and fear erode them quickly. The man you trusted to guard your back yesterday might decide today that stabbing you for your share of food is the better choice. Alliances form, collapse, and reform in cycles, each more fragile than the last. Trust becomes a currency more dangerous to spend than cigarettes. And when alliances break in a fortress filled with weapons and tension, bloodshed is inevitable. Even if you navigate those challenges, outside forces loom. Governments, if they exist, don't ignore prisons. They're high-value assets filled with supplies, fuel, weapons, and potential labor. Soldiers might storm in to seize control, strip everything, or press survivors into service. You don't stop being a resource just because the world collapsed. History proves the point. Russian prisoners conscripted into wars, political prisoners in the Philippines forced into labor, inmates left behind in New Orleans during Katrina. Apocalypse or not, you're not free, you're inventory. And then there's time, the slowest but most reliable killer of all. The generator fuel runs out, leaving the complex in darkness. The sprawling architecture becomes a liability, impossible to defend with a small group. Blind spots stretch in every direction. You either spread yourself too thin or retreat to one corner and abandon the rest. Neither choice is safe. Supplies dwindle, sanitation collapses, pests swarm, and the very walls begin to rot without maintenance. A fortress becomes a tomb, and survival becomes endurance. The first days might trick you into believing the prison is salvation, but days stretch into weeks, and weeks into months, and the cracks show everywhere. You ration carefully, count every meal, and still supplies shrink. You light hallways with flickering lanterns because the diesel tanks dried up long ago. The smell of rot saturates the air until it clings to your clothes and hair like a permanent reminder that this place was never meant for life. You start to forget what fresh air feels like. You wonder if the moaning outside is louder or if your mind is just amplifying it. The sheer size of the prison, once a source of strength, becomes your torment. Walking from one wing to another takes 15 minutes, and every step is a gamble. Shadows move in the corners, echoes confuse direction, and every locked door hides a possibility you don't want to face. Covering the entire complex is impossible, so you shrink into smaller areas, surrendering more and more space until the fortress feels smaller than the smallest apartment. The rest of the building becomes haunted, not by ghosts but by the knowledge that anything could be out there, waiting in the dark. And the pests never stop. Rats chew through supplies, roaches crawl over walls, flies buzz endlessly around corpses you can't clear. You kill them by the dozens, and still they return. They become part of the ecosystem, one you can't control. Disease rides on their backs, turning every bag of food into a potential death sentence. The idea of infection spreads faster than the reality of it. Paranoia grows. Did someone boil the water long enough? Did that rat bite the bread before you ate it? The fear of sickness gnaws harder than hunger. But the greatest danger isn't the pests or the zombies or even the government forces who might storm in to reclaim the building. The greatest danger is the human mind. The prison wasn't built for comfort. No privacy, no sunlight, no peace. Days blur together, walls close in, silence grows heavy. Paranoia breeds hallucinations. Whispers in the dark, shadows moving where none should. Someone snaps, and the infection of madness spreads faster than any virus. One argument turns into fists, fists turn into weapons, and weapons turn into screams that echo through the complex until everyone is on edge. The walls may hold, but the people inside crumble. Eventually, you ask yourself the question no one wants to face. Is this place even worth holding? Short term, it saved you. Long term, it's killing you. Supplies can't last forever. Pests can't be eradicated. Sanitation can't be restored. You survive, yes, but it's a survival defined by misery. You eat just enough, drink just enough, breathe air just foul enough to stay alive. You call it living, but it feels more like serving a sentence without parole. Leaving, of course, isn't easy. Beyond the walls is the unknown. The world has collapsed, towns are overrun, and the nearest supply run might mean trekking 50 miles through wilderness and ruined highways. Vehicles might sit waiting in the garage, but without fuel they're nothing but steel coffins on wheels. Every plan to leave involves risk, and every delay makes leaving harder. The longer you stay, the more the prison feels like a cage you built for yourself, one you know you'll eventually have to break out of. And yet, the irony remains. For all its flaws, the prison still outperforms most other places in the apocalypse. Its walls buy you time. Its supplies give you a head start. Its tools, gardens, and workshops provide opportunities most survivors never get. The catch is that it was never meant to last. It's a temporary shelter, a halfway house between panic and adaptation. You can survive here, yes, but only if you accept that survival doesn't mean victory. It means buying enough days to figure out the next step. If you're lucky, you find water sources outside the walls. Maybe a creek, maybe a river. If you're skilled, you hunt the deer or rabbits wandering the fields beyond the fences. If you're resourceful, you salvage solar panels, patch generators, and turn the prison into something resembling sustainability. But even then, the weight of its size crushes you. Too big to defend, too filthy to maintain, too isolating to endure. What began as a fortress becomes a monument to futility, a reminder that survival isn't about walls, it's about adaptability. So can you survive a zombie apocalypse in a maximum security prison? The answer is yes, for a while. You can ration food, purify water, wear riot gear like armor, and reinforce doors with scrap metal. You can garden behind fences, trade cigarettes like currency, and use inmate skills to weld armor onto buses. You can defend the walls, fight off raids, and keep the lights on for a time. But in the long term, the walls become your cage, the supplies dwindle, the pests multiply, and the silence breaks you. You survive, but you do not thrive. And maybe that's the cruelest joke of all, being trapped in a place designed for punishment, realizing too late that even at the end of the world, the prison is still doing its job.